Are you serious? His voice cut through the room as she placed the yellowed envelope in front of him. Open it, she whispered, and there was something dangerous in the way she said it. A chill ran down his back, as if some door from the past had just swung open. Where did you get this? His voice carried not anger but fear. She didn't look away, and that calm defiance hit harder than any accusation. Inside, he felt a storm rising, the sense that everything he had built could vanish with the flick of her hand. He gripped the envelope but didn't tear it open. His fingers trembled, and for the first time in years he didn't know what to do. Not here, he muttered, pushing it back toward her. But she slid it closer again, her eyes never leaving his. Everyone's watching, he said through clenched teeth, scanning the crowded restaurant. He was right. Heads had turned, whispers were already buzzing. Yet she sat still, unshaken, as though the chaos around them didn't exist. You think they matter? Her tone carried both disdain and challenge. This is between us. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. If you came here to humiliate me. She cut him off. If I wanted that, I would have walked to the press, not to you. A silence followed, heavy and suffocating. His chest tightened, not from age or fatigue, but from the realization that she held something he couldn't control. What do you want? He demanded finally. Her lips curved, but it wasn't a smile. For you to decide whether you're the man they think you are, or the man you really are. He swallowed hard, every instinct telling him to walk away, to end this scene before it spiraled further. But the envelope lay between them like a loaded gun, and he couldn't ignore it. She pushed her chair back, the scrape echoing louder than it should have. You have until tonight, she said, rising with a steadiness that mocked his unease. After that, it's no longer your choice. And then she turned, leaving him staring at the envelope as though it were ticking in front of him. He reached for it, then froze. His hand hovered inches above the paper, his pulse racing. Around him the restaurant hummed again with chatter, but in his ears there was only silence, the silence of a man who realized the past had just walked back into his life, wearing her face. He sat frozen for a moment after she left, the envelope untouched. His reflection stared back at him from the silver cutlery, a man who could buy anything, yet couldn't summon the courage to open a piece of paper. Then he stood. Not calmly, but with the decisive force that had built his empire. He slid the envelope into his jacket pocket and threw bills on the table without counting. Heads turned as he stormed past, but he didn't care. Outside, the night air hit him like a slap. He pulled out his phone, scrolled quickly, then stopped. One name. Someone he hadn't called in years. His thumb hovered, then pressed. Find me information, he ordered the moment the call connected. A woman. Mid-50s. Brown coat, gray scarf. She just left the Carlton restaurant. There was a pause. Sir, are you sure? I don't pay you to ask questions. He hung up, shoving the phone back. His jaw clenched. If she thought she could corner him with secrets, he would find out how much she really knew. But as he stepped toward his car, he froze again. She was across the street, standing under the pale glow of a streetlight, watching him. Not hiding, not moving. Watching. For a second their eyes locked. He expected her to flinch, to look away, but she didn't. She raised her hand slowly, not in a wave, but in a gesture that felt like a warning, and then disappeared into the crowd. His driver opened the car door, but he hesitated. The envelope in his pocket seemed heavier with every breath. He had a choice: drive away and pretend none of this happened, or confront it head-on before the night swallowed him whole. He slid into the car. Follow her. The driver's brow furrowed in the rearview mirror. Sir. You heard me. Don't lose her. The car pulled into traffic, weaving through the lights of the city. His heart pounded, not from fear of losing money or power, but from something far more dangerous, the fear that the life he had built for 60 years was already slipping through his fingers. And somewhere ahead, the woman with the envelope was leading him straight into the truth he wasn't ready to face. The car tailed her through narrow streets, headlights flickering over old brick facades. She walked with purpose, never once looking back. He leaned forward, his eyes fixed on her silhouette. "Where is she going?" he muttered. The driver slowed. The woman turned into a small side street and disappeared inside a dimly lit building. No sign, no security. Just a metal door that closed behind her. "Stop here," he ordered. He stepped out, the envelope pressing against his chest like a second heartbeat. The night smelled of smoke and rain. He crossed the street, pushed the door, and entered. The hallway was narrow, lined with peeling posters and broken lights. Voices echoed faintly. He moved closer, careful, until a sound made him freeze, her voice, low but steady. "He doesn't know yet. But he will soon." Another voice responded, male, unfamiliar. Calm, deliberate. "Then we're almost ready. Keep him close. He'll fight it, but he has no choice." His pulse quickened. Who was she talking to? What did they want from him? He stepped forward, but the floor creaked under his shoe. Silence. A chair scraped inside the room. He pressed against the wall, holding his breath. The door opened suddenly. A tall man stepped out, mid-40s, sharp suit, eyes like steel. Their gazes locked for half a second. The man didn't speak. He just studied him, as if measuring his strength. Then, without a word, he closed the door behind him and walked past, vanishing down the corridor. He wanted to follow, but the woman appeared in the doorway. Her eyes narrowed. "You shouldn't be here." His voice broke harsher than he intended. "Who was that?" She didn't answer. Instead, she held up a second envelope, identical to the first, only sealed with a dark red stamp. "This isn't just about you anymore." The air seemed to thicken. His instincts screamed to snatch it, to demand answers, but her stare pinned him in place. "You open this," she said quietly, "and nothing in your life will look the same." The sound of footsteps echoed behind him, someone else was approaching fast. He turned, but the hallway was already filling with shadows. The footsteps behind him grew louder. He spun, fists clenched, ready to confront whoever emerged from the shadows. A young man in a leather jacket appeared, holding a phone as if documenting the entire scene. Their eyes met, and the man smirked. "Step aside," the millionaire ordered, his voice low and firm. The man didn't move. "Not until she tells you the truth." He turned back to the woman, but she had already hidden the second envelope behind her back. "Careful," she warned, "some truths can't be undone." His patience snapped. He grabbed the first envelope from his pocket, tore the flap open, and yanked out the folded paper. His hands shook as he unfolded it, eyes racing over the faded ink. A name. That's all. Just a single name scribbled in neat handwriting. The blood drained from his face. He whispered it under his breath, as if saying it out loud might summon ghosts. The woman stepped closer. "Now you see why you can't ignore this." "No," he hissed, crushing the paper in his fist. "This doesn't explain anything. It only raises more questions." She reached out as if to calm him, but he pulled away. "Tell me who the man in the suit is. Tell me why you're dragging me into this." For the first time, her voice faltered. "Because you're not the only one tied to that name." Before he could demand more, the young man in the leather jacket stepped between them. "You're wasting time. They already know he's here." "They?" The word cut like a blade. The woman's gaze hardened. "If you want answers, you'll have to come with me now. Otherwise," she glanced at the dark hallway behind him, where more shadows were beginning to stir. For the first time in decades, the man who had controlled boardrooms, markets, and entire industries realized he was cornered. He had taken one step toward her when the second envelope slipped from her hand and landed on the floor. The red seal cracked slightly on impact. He bent to pick it up. And the door at the end of the hallway burst open. The door slammed open, flooding the hallway with harsh light. Two men in dark coats stepped in, their movements precise, practiced. Not thugs, professionals. Go, the woman hissed, pushing him toward a back exit. He hesitated, clutching the envelopes. Who are they? No time. Her tone carried urgency but also fear, something he hadn't seen in her until now. For a heartbeat he froze. He was 60 years old, a man who'd fought corporate wars, not physical ones. His instinct screamed to retreat, to let someone else handle this. But there was no boardroom here, no safety net. It was him, her, and the weight of secrets pressing down. He shoved the crumpled paper into his pocket and ran with her down the corridor. The young man in the leather jacket darted ahead, pulling open a side door that led into a narrow alley. Cold air hit his lungs as he stumbled outside. But the men were faster. One caught up, yanking his sleeve. The millionaire swung back clumsily, surprising even himself when his fist connected with the man's jaw. The impact jolted his arm, pain shooting up to his shoulder, but for a second, he had won. Then the second man grabbed him from behind, forcing him against the wall. He gasped, the air crushed out of his chest. "Run," the woman shouted. She tried to pull the attacker off him, but was shoved to the ground. He saw her fall, the envelope slipping from her grasp again, tumbling into the gutter. For a moment, rage surged stronger than fear. With a desperate twist, he jammed his elbow into the man's ribs. The grip loosened just enough for him to break free, staggering toward the envelope. His knees ached, lungs burned, but he dove down and snatched it before the rain carried it away. When he looked up, the two men were retreating into the darkness, leaving only their threat behind. "This isn't over," one muttered. The alley fell silent except for the woman's ragged breathing. She knelt, brushing dirt from her coat, her eyes glistening not with defeat but with defiance. He bent beside her, the red-sealed envelope clenched tight in his hand. "Why are they after me? Why risk all this?" She met his gaze, voice trembling but resolute. "Because if you don't fight now, you'll lose everything. And not just money." Before he could press further, sirens wailed at the far end of the street, closing in. Police, or someone pretending to be. He realized he had another choice to make: stay and be caught in questions he couldn't answer, or follow her deeper into a world that threatened to strip away everything he thought he knew. The sirens grew louder, bouncing off the narrow alley walls. He pressed his back to the brick, clutching the red-sealed envelope like a lifeline. The woman tugged his sleeve. "This way," she urged, pulling him down a darker passage. His legs burned, his breath came ragged. At 60, he wasn't built for running like this. Still, he forced himself forward, the sound of boots behind them pushing him harder. They burst into a courtyard lit by a single flickering lamp. And there he was. The man in the suit. Calm, composed, as if he'd been waiting all along. "You shouldn't have followed," the man said, his voice steady, almost polite. "You were supposed to stay blind." The millionaire's chest heaved, his voice raw. "Who are you? What do you want from me?" The suited man tilted his head, studying him like a specimen. "It isn't about what I want. It's about what you've ignored for too long." The woman stepped between them. "He deserves to know." "Not yet," the man replied sharply. "He hasn't earned it." The word stung more than the chase, more than the bruises blooming on his ribs. 60 years of clawing to the top, and now a stranger dismissed him like a schoolboy. He straightened, refusing to let weakness show. "You think I'll let you play games with me?" The man's eyes flickered to the envelope. That seal, open it and you'll see just how deep this runs. But understand, once you do, there's no way back. The woman touched his arm, her grip steady. Don't. Not here. Not now. His hand trembled as he looked down at the envelope. The seal glistened faintly in the lamplight, daring him. His pulse pounded. For a second, he almost tore it open. Then the courtyard door banged open. More figures spilled in, shadows with purpose. The suited man stepped back, melting into the darkness with a parting line, "Decide quickly. You're running out of time." The woman pulled him again, and he stumbled after her, lungs burning. His body was failing, every step heavier, but something inside him refused to give in. He had built empires from nothing. He would not collapse here. But as they disappeared into another alley, the question gnawed at him: what truth was so dangerous that even opening an envelope could destroy him? They stumbled into an abandoned warehouse, the echo of their footsteps bouncing through the hollow space. The woman guided him to a rusted chair. "Sit. Catch your breath." His chest burned, each inhale jagged. He wiped sweat from his brow, staring at the envelope still in his grip. "I can't keep running like this," he rasped. "If they want to finish me, let them try." "You don't mean that," she snapped, kneeling before him. "You've survived worse. You built an empire from ashes. Don't give up now." Her words struck, but before he could respond, movement flickered in the shadows. The young man in the leather jacket stepped forward, phone still in hand, its camera light blinking red. "You followed us?" the millionaire barked. The young man smirked. "I wasn't following. I was leading." The realization hit like a blow. His stomach dropped. "You." "Don't act surprised," the young man interrupted, lifting the phone. "You've lived 60 years thinking people are loyal. You should know better by now." Before he could react, two of the dark-coated men from earlier emerged, summoned by the traitor's signal. The woman gasped, stepping in front of him. "Move," one of the men ordered. "No," she said firmly, voice trembling but unbroken. The millionaire forced himself to stand, legs weak but resolve sharpening. "If it's me you want, leave her out." But they didn't reach for him. Instead, they tore the red-sealed envelope from his hand. The paper ripped slightly as it was snatched away, the sound like a knife slicing through his chest. He lunged, but his body betrayed him, too slow, too drained. He collapsed back against the chair as the young man pocketed the envelope. "You'll get your answers," the traitor said coldly, "but not on your terms." They vanished into the night, leaving only silence behind. His fists shook, useless. For the first time in decades, he had truly lost. The woman knelt beside him again, eyes shining with both anger and pity. From her coat she pulled something small, hidden until now, a torn scrap of paper, almost identical to the one he'd seen earlier. A single word scrawled across it. A different name. He stared at it, heart pounding. Another piece of the puzzle. Another shadow from the past. Before he could ask, the warehouse doors creaked open. Heavy footsteps echoed inside, steady and slow. This time, it wasn't the men in coats. It was someone else. The footsteps grew louder, each one echoing like a countdown. The woman gripped his arm. "We have to leave," she whispered. "No," he said, straighter now despite the ache in his body. "Running hasn't given me answers. Not anymore." The doors swung open, revealing a figure he recognized instantly. The man in the suit. He stepped inside, alone, his expression unreadable. "You've lost the envelope," the man said evenly. "But that doesn't matter. The words inside have already been written into you, long before you saw them." The millionaire's pulse hammered. "What are these names? Why are they connected to me?" For the first time, the suited man hesitated. Because they're not just names. They're people. And without them, you wouldn't be standing here today. The woman's breath caught. She glanced at the scrap of paper in her hand, then at the man beside her, torn between revealing more or keeping silent. "Tell me," the millionaire demanded, his voice sharp with desperation. "Tell me now." The suited man stepped closer, lowering his voice. "If you want the truth, you'll have to give up what you've been holding on to your entire life. Power. Control. Pride. You can't have both." The weight of the choice settled over him. For 60 years, he had fought for control of everything: companies, money, reputation. And yet here he was, powerless, cornered by shadows and names that refused to explain themselves. The woman pressed the scrap of paper into his hand. "Decide," she urged. "Fight for what matters, or cling to what's already slipping away." His fist closed around the paper, trembling. He met the man's eyes. "Then I choose to fight." The suited man's lips curved, not into a smile, but into something darker. "Then you've just chosen war." A thunderous crash shattered the moment. The warehouse windows exploded inward as figures in black stormed the room, armed and relentless. The millionaire ducked instinctively, but when he looked up, the suited man was already gone. And in the chaos, the woman's scream cut through the air. She was being dragged toward the shattered window. Chaos ripped through the warehouse. Glass crunched under boots, shouts ricocheted off the walls. The millionaire lunged toward the woman, but two masked figures blocked his path, forcing him back with brutal efficiency. "Let her go." His voice cracked, raw with panic. One of them hissed through a distorted mask, "She made her choice. So did you." He swung wildly, catching one in the shoulder. Pain seared his arm, but he didn't stop. At 60, his body screamed in protest, but sheer will pushed him forward. He'd lost companies, fortunes, allies, but not her. Not yet. Then he froze. The young man in the leather jacket had returned, holding the red-sealed envelope high like a trophy. "Looking for this?" he taunted. "You still don't get it, do you? This was never about the money you made. It was about the people you buried along the way." The words sliced through him. Buried. A chill spread through his chest, sharper than the pain in his ribs. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. The young man smirked. "Ask her." He jerked his head toward the woman, still struggling in the grip of two attackers. Her eyes locked on his, shimmering with something he couldn't name: guilt, sorrow, defiance. "You weren't supposed to find me like this," she whispered. The floor seemed to tilt beneath him. "Find you? What do you mean?" She swallowed hard, her voice breaking. "Because my name was in the first envelope." The room spun. The paper he had crumpled, the name he had read in disbelief, it wasn't just a stranger. It was her. "Impossible," he muttered, shaking his head. "I saw it. I said it out loud." "And you ignored it," the young man cut in, his tone cruel. "Just like you ignored everything that didn't fit your perfect empire." The millionaire's knees buckled. For a moment, he truly thought he might collapse. All the strength, all the armor he'd carried for decades was gone. But before he could speak, the suited man appeared again, stepping through the chaos untouched. His voice was calm, almost surgical. "You wanted answers," he said. "Now they're here. But answers come with a cost." He raised a hand, and the masked figures dragged the woman toward him. The millionaire staggered forward, fury tearing through exhaustion. "If you take her." The suited man's gaze cut him down. "It's already done. And once you see why, nothing in your life will ever look the same." The envelope was torn open. And then, silence. The torn envelope fluttered in the suited man's hand, its contents revealed under the harsh warehouse light. Pages of names, dozens of them, each one written in the same unmistakable script. The millionaire's breath caught. He recognized some old partners, forgotten workers, people who had vanished quietly as his empire grew. Buried under contracts, silenced by money. And there, among them, the woman's name. His voice trembled. Why is she on this list? The suited man's expression didn't change. Because she was one of them. One of the lives you pushed aside when you rose. Only she didn't disappear. She fought her way back to you. The woman's eyes glistened, but her voice was steady. I never wanted revenge. I wanted you to see. To understand what your empire cost. The young man stepped forward, fury blazing. He doesn't deserve understanding. He deserves to fall. For a moment, the millionaire faltered. 60 years of power, stripped bare in seconds. He could let it crush him, admit he was nothing but a hollow man. Or, he could choose differently. He straightened, shoulders heavy but unbroken. You're right, he said, his voice carrying through the chaos. I buried the truth under wealth. But not anymore. If I have to lose everything to face it, so be it. The suited man studied him carefully, then gave a single nod. Then you've already won. The young man's rage cracked. No. He doesn't get redemption. He lunged forward with the torn envelope, but the millionaire moved faster. He seized the pages, tearing them from the man's grip, scattering names into the air like a storm of ghosts set free. The warehouse fell silent. The masked figures froze. Even the woman stared, wide-eyed. I can't erase the past, he said, breathless. But I can fight for what's left. For her. For me. For every name I forgot. The word struck deeper than any blow. The young man's defiance crumbled, his anger swallowed by silence. The suited man turned to leave, his voice echoing, then rebuild, not for profit, but for meaning. The woman stepped closer, her hand finding his. For the first time in years, he felt the weight of money lift, replaced by something raw, fragile, and real. He smiled faintly, eyes burning. This time, he whispered, I don't want millions. I just want us. The warehouse doors opened to dawn. Light poured in, scattering the shadows, warming the dust that still floated in the air. He walked out beside her, no longer the untouchable millionaire, but a man who had chosen to fight, and finally found freedom in surrender. And for those who watched, it wasn't the story of a fortune lost. It was the story of a man who gained everything that mattered.